This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone. We're called to order the Monterey Select at 6:01 p.m. on March 15th. I don't see Laura here yet, Tom. Unless
Yeah,
she's
we
on
can
the
wait a
phone.
few minutes if you want.
Okay, we have some other items that we can get right into then. But then once Laura's here, we'll talk about the planning board.
Sure.
The review of the fiscal year 24 proposed budget, we got options back, 4 options primarily from the banker, thank you. In general, it seems to me like, I mean, it's not a surprise, but if we pay more principal earlier, we're gonna pay less money overall.
I had a few questions about the proposal.
Yeah. Yeah, ask away.
Hi, David, it's Susan Cooper.
Good evening.
Thanks for joining. I had a few questions that, some of which may be very straightforward answers, but I wanna make sure I understand correctly. My first question is, I noticed that the principal for the library, the trucks, it seems to be different, but with the trucks, the principal of the original amount of finance, when you look at the total principal, you take on the same issue on all 4, so let's take the first page. Truck 1, we, according to the original column, financing truck 1 in 2022 was 200,000. When you look at truck 1 principal in 2030, we would have paid 200,000. So we're paying back the amount of principal we originally borrowed. However,
Right.
with the library, the amount of original principal seems to be 1.986 million, but we're only paying back 1.244 million.
Right.
And that's consistent on the various scenarios. Could you just explain that discrepancy?
Sure. Very easy. The 1.986 million included borrowing against the Mass Board of Library Commissioners grant. So that the town received, I believe, 2 payments totaling about $370,000. I might be off on that each. But the difference between the 1986 and the 1244 is basically the MBLC grants, which the town, offset the total cost of the library renovation.
Okay. Thank you.
So our total responsibility for principal is 1.244 million?
That's correct.
Okay. The little asterisk on rate, I'm assuming the asterisk is because you're hypothesizing the rates in future years?
Well, yeah, I think that some of them, probably, I think it was partially a leftover from prior projections, but partly it is, a reminder that for future rates, they are projected. And also for certain kinds of financings, we would be presenting the all-in cost, including all issuance costs, where for the bands and for permanent State House notes, that's the PSHLN, stands for Permanent State House Loan Note. Those are long-term instruments that are issued, certified through the Mass Division of Local Services. For those financings, the rates are just the straight interest rate on the financing.
Okay, thank you. That was another question. Do you have anything?
So just to clarify, in some of these models, in option 4, it seems like we have some principal left to pay on the library, but nothing predicted for 2030. What's going on there? Do we have principal due in 2030? Or does the
Yeah,
projection?
I made the assumption that the permanent financing would be repaid over 5 years once the permanent financing is done. And it occurred to me afterwards that if you as a board want to see a longer repayment to reduce the impact of the annual impact, we could look at that. The thing is, permanent State House notes, typically, they're not really marketable beyond 5 years, so we would be looking at a different kind of instrument that could be more, the cost of issuance could be higher, the overall cost could be higher. If the board wants me to model something that could go out 15 years from the date of issue, I could do that. I don't think that that will have an impact on your 24 deliberations, though.
Mhm. Okay.
I hope the explanation was clear. So 2030 for the ones where the borrowing starts in 25, it just reflects the fact that I'm assuming a 5-year permanent repayment in each case.
So the difference between, maybe I have this backward, but in scenario 4, that was ostensibly when we were going to do larger pay downs towards things. And scenario 3 is smaller pay downs, or do I have it backwards?
I think you got it right. Option 3 is minimum required pay downs with the permanent financing this fall. And the option 4 is
Okay.
larger pay downs with permanent financing this fall.
Okay, so the confusion to me then, all right, with permanent financing this fall, so the differences in the payments, looking at the principal payments for scenario 3, right? Look at truck 1, it's 34 grand a year, right? And then in scenario 4, it's only about 14 grand a year. That doesn't really seem to me, I guess some of those years are no, those are all future years. So.
Right, so what's
how we're
happening,
paying-
so what's
Go ahead.
happening is the larger principal payments in option 3 reflect the fact that you're not paying as much principal upfront, paying it down. So you're having to repay it over that longer period. Whereas for truck 1, you're only having to finance roughly $70,000 because of the larger principal pay down in fiscal year 24.
In option 4, it seems like the principal pay down is the same as in option 3.
Yeah, that's why, exactly. It looks like the principal paid on in both is 29.6. But then we end up,
79.50.
wait, where are you getting 750?
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the library loan.
Oh, sorry. I'm seeing 29.6 for truck 1 in 2023.
Well, we already did that.
That's what we already did?
We already did that.
And then I don't see any principal pay downs other than the 14th being listed for truck 1. Am I looking in the wrong place?
I'm wondering whether they might have assumed the larger pay down was coming from some other source of financing in option 4. I'll have to take a look at
Yeah, because
that.
option 4 says larger pay down, but it actually has no pay down in 2024.
Well, it has 70,950, which is actually the minimum, what I see is the minimum pay down. But it does, I think that it probably.
In the library,
So
sorry, I was speaking truck 1.
We were speaking truck 1, yeah.
Yeah.
So there doesn't appear to be a pay down for truck 1 in 2024. At least
Right,
not what I
because
see
there's
listed.
not a requirement.
Uh-huh.
I don't think there's a requirement. I think we were talking mainly about the library in this case. But
Maybe it's because the $50,000, $51,000 last year is not showing up.
I guess the confusion to me is that there's the difference in the payments for truck one in scenario 3 and scenario 4. I don't see where that's coming from, because I don't understand where the remainder is, and, in one scenario, we're paying $200,000 of principal, in the other, we're paying $100,000 of principal, and I don't get where the rest of the money's coming from, cause everything else looks the same.
Right, well, the later years are lower, but I'm wondering if I need to rework. As I look at this, maybe I need, see.
It's not just me.
Well, it should take into account on truck one in every model that we have the 50,000 that was
Yeah,
allocated
I
last.
think that if you look at options 1 and 2, it may be that option 4, I need to rework that and get that back to you as I look at this, because I think it should look, option 4 and option 2 should look more similar. If you look at option 2, there's a $250,000 total pay down in 24 for the library. And there is $100,000 for truck 1. So I think maybe what I should do is just take another look at this. And are you meeting again next week?
Yes,
I will redo this, and I'm happy to appear before you at your next meeting.
thank you.
Thank you so much. What, did you have any other questions, since we're doing some of this?
I think just the gist of it is that $50,000 that we have, 51,000 roughly, that we had from allocating this year, but never putting it towards the truck one. And we never made that decision to not put it towards truck one.
Okay, so you want to see you do want to see the 51,000 allocated in 24? Or you're saying it should have been?
That's how I
mean,
would
think
do it personally.
Remind me, where is that money? We have it.
We have it
spend
right now.
Right, yeah, okay. I mean, I don't see any reason not to, if we set it aside and we have it, it's gonna reduce our payments, so it makes fiscal sense, I'm sure.
Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll get you I'll look at it and make any necessary revisions.
Thank you.
David,
Okay.
when you send it to Sarah, can you send it to me as well?
Is this Melissa that I can't?
Yeah, sorry.
I will send it to both. Yes, I can't really
Thank you.
see you, so yes, I will send it to both of you.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
So we are going to jump a little bit to the planning board, new business, number 6 or number 3, depending how it's listed. Because we have both of the planning board chairs here and no other guests.
Okay,
Um,
most excellent.
Thank you.
Laura, Tom, Susan, I think you know more about this than anybody here. I don't know what the best way is to proceed, if you want to share all your thoughts here, or maybe in the future at a planning board meeting, but we should have a brief discussion on what the expectations are.
I really just wanted to get a clear sense of whether you guys had a plan, and if so, what it was, and how you were planning to proceed, so that we can get this little problem fixed and be done with it.
So my thought, Susan, is based on, is a little echo, sorry. From our email, I was still a little confused as to the path forward. So I was hoping that after we do the Gould Farm site plan review, so we can do that probably middle to late April. If we could have you come in and kind of present this, you've done most of the research on what's gone and had conversations with the lawyer. If you could come to one of our meetings and give kind of a summary to the whole board, just so that I'm not trying to interpret all the different correspondence and getting it wrong.
So,
Would-
can you do that, whether that is, they can see me, that way, the camera's there. So, I'm happy to do that, Tom, but I'm gonna say that I'm a little frustrated, because way back last September, I did do that. I brought you all the research, I came to the meeting, I laid out verbally exactly what had to be done. I followed that with an email that I thought was pretty clear. You didn't have further questions. I followed it up with this, just to check in with you a while back. And clarified it again, and your response seemed to indicate you didn't understand either the emails or my previous visit to you, so I'm happy to come again. But the bottom line here is there's two things that are at issue. One is, we passed a bylaw concerning summer camps. It's clear from the lawyer that after there's all the posting and hearings before we put it on the warrant, then we take the warrant to town meeting and the town votes on it. After it's approved by town meeting, it has to be posted again, the exact wording of what was passed, for that to legally be in effect. And for whatever reason, with this particular one, and I'm not even touching other ones, because I didn't look at them.
Yeah, I
This
understand.
one was never posted after it was passed. The lawyer says all we have to do to make that bylaw active is to post it in our official sites. If you guys reach out to the clerk and ask her to post it on our official sites, it will be in effect. That is all you have to do. I don't think it has to wait till August, right? It's pretty simple. The wording exists, it was passed at meeting, it's in the minutes, the wording is passed, has to be posted.
So, and I apologize for your frustration. I can understand it because it's been a little bit of time. And in our defense, we've had some other things that have been a little bit higher on our priority list. And what I want to make sure that I don't do is, if I just ask the clerk to post, I'm not 100% clear exactly which version I'm posting. So I want to make sure that when we do this, I don't get it wrong, or we don't get it wrong, and dig ourselves into a deeper hole. So that's really the reason for my request for clarification. Is I think we're ready to, we've got that behind us, and I think we're ready to do that, but I just don't want to make a mistake, because
Okay. I will be happy later this evening or tomorrow to once again get the minutes of the appropriate town meeting off of the website, cut and paste to you the text that's relevant to this particular bylaw. That is the text the text from the minutes of the appropriate town meeting is the text that would need to be posted as it was passed.
so why wouldn't the whole
I'll be happy to send it.
why wouldn't the whole bylaw need to be posted if the same thing happened for the whole version? I guess that's where my confusion is. My understanding is the whole bylaw was changed at that point, not just the table. So wouldn't we need to post the whole bylaw again?
That may be the confusion. This isn't about the table. That's a different problem and has to have a different solution. This is about the wording of the actual bylaw that spoke about year-round camps. The table, as it stands now, is a separate issue. That is a harder issue. Because, so let's just finish step one. Step one is the actual wording, not the table, but the wording.
Okay, yeah,
of
so
the
that's
original
where my
bylaw.
confusion, yeah, go ahead.
It's not the table, it's the wording of the original bylaw from which presumably the table was made, if indirectly, but it's the original wording, not the table. That's what was passed at town meeting, that's what can be posted, and that's what would be in effect. The table has a separate solution that I know you guys aren't gonna like, but I spoke with Laura about, which according to Donna, remember, I'm just the messenger here, right? This is what's coming from the lawyer, right? According to Donna, that wording, the table that was made by the contractor was in fact never passed at a town meeting. And presumably, I don't know whether it was advice from council or where, none of us were serving at that time, so I don't know how it transpired. What I do know from the lawyer is that even if they took the wording from various bylaws and put it together into the table, which we all agree is a much better way to access information, right? Like, I would never say don't have a table, it's great. However, the table itself also had to be passed at town meeting, and to my knowledge, never was. At least not at any town meeting I've looked at, and I unfortunately looked at them all. So in order for that to properly be in effect, it would have to be put on the warrant and passed.
Mhm.
Sorry.
No, with
So
the
ju-
correction.
With the correction, yes, please, with the correction.
So just that section, section 3, I think it is, but whatever section it is in the bylaw, with only the wording piece, not the table that goes with it, was passed separately from the previous part of the bylaw. And the rest of section 1, 2, 4, 5 was already passed at meeting and was also submitted separately from, I think it's section 3, but from section 3.
I guess now I'm unclear at what you're asking, because without looking at the table, I mean, maybe should we meet at some point with the thing in front of us to clarify this? Because the table, as it appears now in the 2017 zoning rules, was presumably created from words, not a table, that pre-existed that table, right?
Correct.
The camp year-round was words, it was never in a table.
Right.
Right, and I presume a bunch of the other things in that table were also words that got converted to the table. I can't speak to the rest of them, because I didn't carefully research them. So I don't know if there are other problems with things in the table, I only really have a clear understanding of the issue with the camp year-round report. Does that make sense, Tom?
I think I understand the separation of the table and the words, but is it only the words in that section that the table came from that need to be posted, or is it the whole bylaw, section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the whole thing that was never
It's just
posted?
the amendment that has to do with the camp year-round that I know of. I cannot speak to whether there are other things that are in a similar situation, because I did not research that.
Gotcha.
But it does raise not an issue, it does raise a interesting point, which is that if other parts of the bylaws are not properly posted, is now the time to do it. And I think the point being, you take the wording right off of the certified town meeting minutes, because you can't go wrong if you do that, right?
Exactly. Because the wording off the certified minutes is the official documentation of what was actually passed at town meeting.
So what was our legal posting place in 2009?
I think the same, I don't know, but whatever the posting places are now is where we can post it, but
Yeah.
we could not find any written record that it had ever been posted.
I just wonder if there is a written record
Right, I don't
about it
know.
being posted, and if
Right.
you dig into all these, now certainly the bylaw should reflect what was passed at town meeting.
Right.
But I wonder if it isn't the case that we can't find evidence of posting of other bylaws, and they were maybe properly posted.
I don't know, cause I didn't look.
So can you just explain, when you say we need to repost that bylaw, right?
Or actually just post.
Post it.
I
We go to the town clerk and she posts it.
I believe she is charged with
Just post it.
official postings.
Okay.
Right, and she knows where those
Where those
spots
go.
are.
Okay.
Right, so you just need to provide her with the wording, which
Okay.
arguably she herself could get from the certified town minutes, but.
But she, yeah.
Right.
It's better to provide. Okay.
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 Is everyone satisfied?
Yeah, Tom, on the next meeting, we will discuss this.
Yeah, and I know we have the special town meeting, special public hearing on the 30th. We probably still should have the meeting on the week before that, because we had gone out an extra meeting, so we can pull that together and cover that. What is it, 7 days, but it
Okay.
must be the 23rd.
And I realize fixing the table may if there's a lot of postings involved in putting on something on a warrant, which I believe there is, that we may have missed the window to put it on annual town meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know, but like, because it is a big thing.
So you
Yeah.
can't just post the table. You have to make sure the bylaw, the bylaws to each of those tables are correct, or?
I certainly would wanna do it if I was doing that, but don't you have to have hearings? Because essentially you're proposing I don't know, is it a change if you're just reformatting? I'm not sure.
It
But I
sounds
would
like it is.
imagine-
It sounds like it is. So,
I imagine you would have to do the whole like posting, public hearing.
Yeah.
Michigans.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I mean, it's a bad mistake, actually. Is there anything you need me to do, Tom?
no, we'll schedule the regular meeting, and I think I'm clear. I'll look back through the correspondence and make sure, Susan, and do you mind if I contact you separately if I need to?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Anytime.
Or Laura and I to make sure.
Either one of you.
We get it right. I think this is what happens when there's no clear record of what is going on with bylaws and information. It's really important to have all this documented.
And I don't know if, and there may be other things that weren't posted. We don't know. None of us know because we weren't there when it happened. I don't think.
Right. All right.
Well, Tom and Laura, thank you for joining.
Appreciate
Okay,
it.
no problem. All
Yeah,
right, thanks,
and
Tom.
I'd like to thank Lori for being our clerk now. She's certainly stepped us up on the minutes and is doing a great job. So thank you, Lori. I did see the post in the Eagle today for our public hearing. So thanks for getting that in.
Thanks for all your hard work, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
All right.
So continue report, we will backtrack to the review for fiscal year 24 budget, which we're waiting on a response from the banker regarding the debt service to get a corrected sheet. And then we're waiting on a list from Jim regarding town hall repairs. Pressing. Item C is the highway truck.
Yeah, I just need to know if you guys are gonna have me put it back in there and as a loan, it's because it's not in the budget as it stands right now.
Yeah, I mean, I still agree with the decision to not put it in the budget for this year.
We didn't revisit that, did we, last week?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so. Scott, is Scott on?
I think he's the caller, yeah.
Scott, are you the caller?
Hello.
I just checking to see, because it just says caller, so I wasn't sure if that was you.
What's left of me, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So the highway, truck, my sense was that it wasn't an urgent purchase, the truck is still doing fine. And it doesn't require any major repairs. And that we could delay its purchase.
So just be mindful that next year there is a $200,000 truck that will need to be repaired. And so you'll have two trucks on there for a total of, possibly $300,000
Repair to replace.
replace.
Okay,
So
so repairs.
sorry,
Just checking.
the one it has several repairs going on in it right now. He'd prefer to switch them because that one when it's on for next year is in more dire shape. And he's not really sure it's going to make it to next year.
Why did that one take bigger hit points, or was it just random chance?
I think it's just random chance.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out where.
I just don't think, it makes sense to do this year because we already have spent free, as the budget currently stands, with borrowing only for the medical 9 fire truck, which I think we're waiting to hear back details on that. As it currently stands, just spending free cash on our special articles leaves us with 96,000 in free cash. I believe, 96,000.
Are we looking at the 3-1 stated workbook?
3.9.
3.9?
I have 3.1, but I don't think it's substantially different.
It may not be different at all, but I just wanna make sure I'm
Yeah.
looking with the same thing.
So I think we have $96,000 left in free cash, 96,400.
406, yeah, that's what I got.
406, without putting any money in stabilization, also without spending money out of stabilization, but it would leave our stabilization balance even at 607,297 roughly, 607,000 roughly.
And that 96 is with using free cash to buy the police cruiser, at least according to my version.
Yes. But not with spending any free cash to reduce the tax levy or spending any free cash to put into stabilization. So it seems like if we wanna spend free cash on special articles and also maybe have some left in the neighborhood of 50,000 to 100,000, and also maybe put some into stabilization, we're already short.
Agreed.
Unless something else can get freed up from somewhere else. And maybe we could also borrow or dip into stabilization, but I'm not comfortable with that personally.
I don't think I'd be recommending it right now either.
So are you and Scott also not in favor of putting the truck on?
I think that, I feel like when we discussed it last, we all agreed we were not going to, I don't remember otherwise.
Right, then I gave you guys that email letting you know that there's gonna be over $1 million next year, and that you would be adding to it, and I think you guys were gonna reconsider, you talked about the police cruiser, but not
Right,
the truck, so I just wanted to make sure that that decision still stands.
I think, it's not bad to bring it up, but I think so. I think there's next year's you're right, there's a lot of capital costs coming down the pipe, but I think we gotta take one year at a time, right this minute.
Do we have any further updates on the hot brush and medical vehicle? I mean, unless we're able to free up some funds from somewhere or something like that.
I mean, if that came in a lot, and then we were talking about borrowing that, so that's not gonna free up free cash anyway, but point taken.
Well, we could borrow it.
Right.
Or we could pay for that free cash, I guess, because it's what, 80 or 90,000?
For this year,
For the truck, if we bought it.
78,000.
That would be pretty much the whole range.
I guess one option would be if we determine that the truck is more necessary than the police cruiser, but I think we already discussed the police cruiser and came to a conclusion on that. I don't have any desire to change that decision at this point.
I don't either. Scott, do you have thoughts?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, my best concern is for you guys. They're entry level select members, and you may feel pressured this year. I want to let you know that next year the pressure will be heavier. The decision making will be harder. But just think that if it requires that a percentage point or 3 or whatever, that raises our tax rate, don't be embarrassed by that or feel like we're going to hate for it. Because just make the best decisions you two have. Because next year, whatever you will be something that you will have to think hard here. So, I'm following along as closely here. And if it was my decision, this truck, that's where I'll leave it. Because board just feel that a tough track. Putting anything off make it harder. That's all.
Just to clarify, because it's a little hard, for some reason, your voice is going in and out over the speaker. You're saying that your advice would be to leave it into this year's budget and buy the truck this year.
Yes, I would say that's my belief. But borrow that and run that out for the 5 years or so that it's going to take. That's what I would say. I'm sorry if my voice is coming in.
So, as I understand it, and I'm hoping that if I do, you will catch it. The current situation, the budget as it stands, at least on 3/1, is basically about a penny increase in the mill rate. And that jump in the mill rate, at least in part, is due to the fact that the levy was reduced by $500,000 last year because of the error in the previous year with free cash.
I think it was 475, but yeah. I think you're saying, are you noting which percent change?
On budget, in the budget comparison, Melissa's prepared a little thing that talks about based on the valuation and the tax levy, what the tax rate would go to, the current, potentially. Like, it's an estimate.
Because you're right, there's a lot of other factors that go into it, but.
It's an estimate based on if we have to raise this much and this is the valuation, this is what the mill rate would be, and this is what the mill rate currently is. So it's an estimate, which is running at about a penny increase, which is like a 17% jump. But having looked at this enough, my sense is that the size of that impact is because it was artificially low last year rather than this giant jump this year, right? So it feels like a big thing because 1 year we had a lessening rather than an increase. So, that will make it not seem like it's a jump next year, but that might not apply if there were huge capital expenses that were building up. I don't know. I see both sides of this one because putting things off could end up having multiple capital expenses in the same year. It leaves me torn, because I am not in a big hurry to increase this budget, and I also see Scott's point.
Can I interlude for a moment?
Please.
Yeah.
Let's just do a game. We've got the same budget now. The minimum increase. We
You're breaking up.
Hold on 1 second, Scott. Would it be possible to have him just on the speakerphone like we did with John that time at the CBA? 'Cause that was better than this. He's almost he's basically incomprehensible. Would you guys agree with that? Yeah.
Scott, you wanna call us at, the town hall number, but hit extension 114?
Sure, I'll be right there.
Okay.
I can't understand. Sorry.
Hopefully it's not his cell phone that's doing it. You know,
Right, sometimes it snowballs because if you have one thing doing just a little blip and another thing doing just a little blip and an owl and then at the end it's. Sounds like Mario Brothers.
Hey, Scott.
Hello, does this help at all?
Yeah, it did a bit.
Okay. Well, if you were to just play the game of the same thing that we're basically doing now, you've got a budget in front of you right now that's making you feel a little quaky. Let's take the same budget and add the same percentages that we did this year from last year's, and then add all of your things that you need to plan for and purchase. And in the next week, both you and point I was making is that if you can clear a little bit now and, be able to stand up and look at people and say, this is it, this is why we're doing it, either believe in us or not, because next year is gonna be even harder for that budget to make or break. I'm not trying to scare anybody in anything, it's just a matter of trying to do that one little bit of a, program that may make you realize, holy cow, next year's budget, it's gonna look like a doozy compared to this one. You've still got time to figure out what's left in and what's out. I'm not gonna be there for 2 more weeks, but I don't think I have to be until, well, not that I don't have to be, I wanna be, but I'm just going away. So when I come back, I believe that you guys will have the budget pretty much ready for everybody to sign. And if there's any last tweaking, then of course we can do it then, but, I don't wanna stand in anybody's way. Okay, all I wanna do is just try to help, so I may not be helping. That's just the other part, is that, who knows? It's kind of a crapshoot. So do that little bit of a process, put yourself into next year's budget next week and see what you're gonna do. And if it shows that maybe next year the truck can be next year, then hallelujah. If it can't be, then you'll know right away. And if it becomes this year, then that's what it needs to become. That's all.
Thank you.
Over and out.
Thank you, and it was great to actually be able to understand your words.
That helps.
Yeah, it really does.
Melissa, do you know if we go forward with phase 3 of the construction of the culvert right here, how much the town is going to be responsible for?
Right now, we are estimating, when I say we, the RPC and, let's go find out which tab I have on. We are looking at about 300,000 the town will.
That the town will be responsible for in the fiscal year 2025?
Yeah. And then you've also got,
But could we finance that over years, or would that be too long?
It's like chapter 1.
no, he's got chapter 90 allocated for other projects. And then you'll have a $200,000 at 550. You'll have a $900,000 fire engine, $32,000 in defibrillators. One thing we haven't talked about, but it's been brought to my attention, is the fire company wants that cistern, is that what it's called? And the work, Jim estimates the work to make it accessible will be about $125,000. So that's another cost that the fire company will have to have access to fire water.
So maybe I'm looking at an outdated capital plan, but all those numbers were different from what I'm looking at.
So when the guys come in, they give me updated numbers, and they come in, they say, oh, do you remember that number you had in there? Well, I just talked to a salesman and it's now this.
Okay, so can we please see an updated capital plan?
To you right now.
Alright, so we'll come back and to discuss this again next week with further considerations on this budget and the following budget.
Do you have
That works.
anything else in this that you're particularly flagging, so that when I go through, give it some extra attention and have a better clarity for our discussion? And I think,
I don't have that available at the
Okay.
moment.
I mean, a lot of things, I think we've talked through a lot of things, but I just wanna make sure I pay attention to the things that are gonna get brought up that I don't touch myself.
I don't have that at the moment.
No,
but
that's
yeah,
okay.
I'll come with it next week.
Alright,
Should we discuss briefly revolving funds?
sure, what are we discussing regarding revolving?
So we're kind of restructuring, Melissa drafted an
Right.
article to restructure the revolving funds because of the change where the community center operating expenses
Right.
are becoming a line item.
So this is specifically the revolving fund for Valley Galley.
Well, this proposal actually splits it up to a community center revolving fund and a Valley Galley revolving fund.
Yeah, if you look at the email, I wasn't sure you were gonna talk about it, so I just kinda did a mock one. today.
Which email are we talking?
I think I sent it in maybe one or something.
Today.
Yeah,
Okay.
I said.
We can come back to that next week too, when we've had time to look at it, but the gist of it is separating out the community center revolving fund, where the funds are coming from, what they're being used for, and what's the maximum annual limit and what's the maximum carryover balance. We have to set each separate, because it was a combined community center and Valley Galley,
Right,
and I would say,
I don't know how I missed this, but yeah, it's here at about 2 today, so.
so we'll take a look at that next week, when we've had time to prepare. What's that, Scott?
Is there a way to allow that revolving fund to work for both buildings? Just have one revolving fund that we could draw from for both?
That's what we had, and it didn't seem to be working due to a number of things, yeah.
I think finally it stopped working because of the amount of upgrade that Valley Galley needs,
Yeah.
at least for this coming year.
Yeah.
But that's fine, that's understandable, just a question.
So the unreasonable noise bylaw, again, this is kind of late for today, but I think other than modifying any exemptions or specific enumerations, the 3 points that I think we should consider is, what standard are we going to use for measurement of unreasonable noise? So the reasonable quiet standard is how it's currently drafted and used in a few of the examples that we were offered. The 150 feet standard, noise that is plainly audible at a distance of 150 feet from its source, is used in a couple of other examples, and the decibel level measurement was not used in any of the examples we had. I did get sent a code, not from the state, but that actually used all 3 standards: reasonable quiet, the distance standard, and the plainly audible standard, and the decibel level.
In one bylaw?
Yeah, in one,
Wow.
it was a city ordinance, but,
Okay,
I think the reasonable quiet standard works.
so
I-
do we have any information about like if people have take it to court because they're not happy with the fine, and on the basis of this, like I couldn't find any definition. I mean, I looked online a little bit, there's no legal definition of reasonable quiet. Of course, the 150 feet standard has the same problem, like the 150 feet is definable, but what are you saying, that you can hear it at all at 150 feet? I mean, people can probably hear my speaking voice 150 feet away, and I don't think I'm yelling, right? So I'm not sure, well, maybe not 150 feet, but I guess I'm just raising the question, like, I think both of those, the decibel level causes lots of problems. I think both reasonable quiet and 150 feet standard are okay, I don't have a problem, but I also don't know how it actually gets enforced, or like what happens in the real world when you use it, does it work? And it's an answer I don't have, I'm just, by the way, I really appreciated how you laid out the issues, it was super helpful, got
Yeah.
right to the heart of the issue, that's great.
So I think, they both seem to be legally acceptable ways to do it based on their adoption by a number of towns each.
Well, we don't know, I mean, just because you adopt something doesn't mean it works.
Yeah.
We don't know that.
No, I don't know that it works, but it seems to be legally acceptable.
Right.
I think I just prefer the reasonable quiet standard, because the idea that the 150 feet standard gets away with any discretion of the enforcement officer, I don't think really holds water, because someone could say, I hear it at 150 feet and you don't hear it, or what tape measure are you using? I don't think it gets rid of the fact that still police officers need to go and investigate and determine if they deem that it's unreasonable quiet.
I mean, you have to have some, for lack of a better word, neutral party, don't you? I mean, otherwise, there's no way to enforce it.
Yeah, I think no matter what, we're probably gonna have we're going to have the
The
police
police.
department enforce it.
I would agree.
Um,
So, I mean, I'm okay with reasonable quiet, it's not a problem for me.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with your fee structure either. I think 100, 200, 300 makes sense. One thing I did tag as a potential issue is the 14 business day issue. Because if we want to notify abutters that we're going to be doing something, would we need to meet to agree to notify the abutters? Like, I'm just worried about the timeline, and especially if we were going to every other week, would we need to make that 28 calendar days just to ensure that we could have 2 meeting cycles if we're inviting abutters?
I would think that the application for permit for relief would just automatically trigger a notification to the abutters, which is done for other permit processes in town, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, but there are permit process in which the people pay to do a mailing. Am I
No,
correct?
we do not notify abutters.
They have to do it, right?
So the only time abutters are notified is if it's an NOI through the Concom, and they have to do that, they have to pay for it.
And special permits
Special permits, yes.
for the
And the
ZBA.
poll hearings, I thought the abutters were notified.
Yes, but you're talking about hearings, not a permit. So like if someone gets a special event permit where they're, getting a, 1-day alcohol license.
We don't notify abutters. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a good thing to do. If it raises the fee, the price, it should probably come with a fee, so maybe we don't include it. But I think it is a courteous thing to do.
I agree, I think it's the courteous and sensible thing to do, especially if we're talking about not a 1-day permit, but like a permit for a facility. I think you need to inform the abutters. The question is the process for doing that. Who's responsible for doing it? What's the method of, because if we being the town is responsible for doing it, where do we get the list of abutters? How much time do we need to make the list and notify the abutters? Do we need to notify them by mail? All of which means, like, if we were notifying them by mail, we're gonna have to charge the applicant so that it covers the cost, and we're gonna have to allow enough time to print it, mail it, and allow people notice of the hearing.
I think I'll probably just reach out. Well, no examples actually had notification of abutters.
Right.
That was an original creation, but the 14 business days there were. So maybe if we kept the 14 business days and deleted notification to abutters, and hopefully a good select board would go out of their way to reach the abutters somehow,
Make a
but
few calls.
it's not required,
Right.
because if it wasn't, I guess, yeah, there will be legal challenges and an abutter will say I was not properly notified,
Right.
so we can delete that.
Okay.
Keep it simple.
Yep,
But are we still comfortable, or based on that decision to delete notification of abutters, does 14 business days seem reasonable? I mean, 14 business days is almost 3 weeks, right? And then if the select board doesn't act on the permit, then the permit is assumed deemed approved.
Okay, just curious, Sue, you had mentioned ongoing permit, that you would get a permit, and then it would be good into perpetuity to some degree.
I don't know if, we could date it, it doesn't have to be in perpetuity, but it's unclear to me, if this could apply either to a single event, or what if it applies to a camp? Do they need to ask for a permit every year? Do we wanna have an expiration date?
It could apply to a camp, or a recurring event, but it says in the permit for relief section, any permit granted by the select board shall set forth all conditions pertaining to the specified noise and a reasonable time limit for its abatement. So if someone was doing a summer camp for 8 weeks and they had an activity and they're out in the woods in the middle of nowhere. I don't know that we have such a camp in Monterey, but if they said, the bylaw says 9 o'clock, but we're gonna hold
an online drumming circle.
till 10 or 11, we could say for 8 weeks, you can be relieved of the bylaws obligations until 11 PM. But it's still, if it's 11:30, that goes beyond the specifications set forward. And I would think that it would just be good practice to not set too broad of a relief.
And if they're regularly violating it, there is recourse to rescind their permit, I believe. Is
Yeah,
that
so I
what
did-
I
I
understood
did
Donna
get-
to be saying?
I did get, so on the very last page, so there's text.
Yep.
The very bottom comment, I said, could a violation result in the town rescinding a permit? And a couple follow-up questions, and Donna said, if the town has accepted the provisions of general law, chapter 40, section 57, then yes.
So my comment on that one, when I went and looked at chapter 40, section 57, it focuses on funds received by the tax collector. So my question was, if, let's say you get a speeding ticket and you pay it, who receives that money? Does the tax collector get that money? Who does that?
State if you get a speeding ticket.
Okay. So my point is, if the
Where-
police are issuing a fine, where do they pay that and who receives it? Because chapter 40 is only talking about monies received by the tax collector. And if the tax collector didn't receive the money, then it wouldn't be on the lists and we could act on it. Yeah, annoying, right?
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't know, I guess it's something that should be looked into, I'll take a look at that. But it's possible the money does stay local rather than going to the state, I think it's actually, I assume that's what it was doing.
Not certain, but the permit should never be the loophole that a business can individually uses on a rotating basis to get around the bylaw.
Right.
And it sounds as though one of the things that you're kind of working on without thinking that way is the way this permit could be issued. I think it needs to be issued on a one-time basis with a fee structure and a start time and a finish time. It can't, otherwise we've created a bylaw that you can just get around by getting a permit. It's one thing to have Joe Schmo's daughter get married or a graduation party once in a life. It's another to have an operation going where Thursday night, a new crowd of people come in and you've got a big bonfire going and you're hooping and hollering, and then that happens again on Saturday night. And you just get the permit and the neighbors just have to put up with it. So be careful how you propose it and word it. I really believe that it should have a definitive date of the event and be permitted for that date and that date only, in my opinion.
I also added, the language talks about, or the question you asked was about like revocation of a permit. So I guess that would be a permit specific to the noise bylaw, because it occurs to me the only other permits that the TAP has to get are health inspector and fire chief, right? I mean, right, and building, if they're building something,
No, they have to have one.
Yes,
that's occupancy,
Don and Sean would do inspections every year.
right? But can you revoke their permit, their occupancy permit, because they didn't pay a noise-related fine? Because I could see the building inspector saying, well, I'm just inspecting the buildings and the buildings passed. I'm not gonna
Well-
withhold their permit because they violated a noise ordinance last year and didn't pay the fine.
Right, no, you're probably right, that they should be probably kept separate.
Well, it seems here though that if any municipal, if taxes, fees, assessments, or other municipal charges are not paid, then this allows the town to revoke, suspend, or deny a building permit or most other local licenses or permits.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would imagine it may just be worded in a bylaw somehow that we have to make a change.
Right.
But if we're trying to re-up the bylaw that you were talking about, that was the noise bylaw, wasn't it?
Yes, we're talking about the noise bylaw.
So maybe that noise bylaw, we just need to look at that a
that's what we're talking about, the nitty gritty of. I have a few specific changes
Yeah.
about your language too. Why did you take out public address systems in item A?
I think I intended to add it.
Oh. It said, oh, you deleted and, wait.
I deleted and.
And then replace it with and public address systems. Okay, perfect. Next question was, item G.
Mhm.
That's not being exempted, right? That's being prohibited,
Oh, did I put that?
I think.
Yeah, I put that in the wrong place, my apologies. Yeah, it was specifically not allowed,
Right.
which would be a very bad time.
That really seemed like a bad idea to me.
I meant
so-
to add it to exemptions.
Exemptions, okay, thank you.
Can I power your house?
I was like, really, are you sure you wanna do that? That sounds like a bad idea. It didn't occur to me to put it in the wrong section, I would have said that. I was like, there must be somebody's got a really loud generator in this building. Oh my God, no idea. Time parameters, Donna brought it up too on C, the agriculture noise.
Yes,
Like, not that people would generally be running farm equipment at 3 a.m, but
the only thing that I'm not sure about is I do think Monterey adopted the right to farm bylaw. And I don't know if setting time limits would go against that.
what's in the, well, it might if there's
That's why I was just going to.
There's low
leave it as an
numbers in the
exemption.
right.
Yeah,
if the right to farm bylaw was in there, we wouldn't want them to conflict for sure.
If you sign, they give you something when you settle on the house about the farming and the thing.
Those were.
I can go,
It's
I
like-
can look into that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just like if chickens were making noise in the middle of the night and there was something,
Okay. That was the only thing, that was all that I got.
Good.
It's complicated, this
Yeah.
mess, right? Like, once you open the can of worms, you just,
So it says that the above described agricultural activities may occur on holidays, weekends, and weekends by night or day and shall include the attendant incidental noise, odors, dust, and fumes.
So I think we'll just not
leave it
put
as,
time
right,
parameters.
okay, that's fair.
Move generators to specifically allowed and not specifically banned. And stick with the current permit structure, reasonable quiet standard, delete notifying of abutters. And the 14 business days and a permit fee. I know no permit fee for said application is straight from another bylaw.
Right.
I don't know if we want
And I don't know that we need to have a permit fee if we're not doing notification.
Yeah, because it will just come to the select board,
Right.
we'll just consider it, if they wanna show up, they will, and if they don't, they won't. And we won't specifically notify abutters, but it might, an attempt may be made to be neighborly.
Do we,
What if it's a paid event? What if somebody's actually charging people to come to an event?
that is a good
They
question.
would have a special event permit and they would pay the $25 fee for that application.
Did you catch that?
Yeah, $25, that's it.
That's it.
Okay. So then, what does that permit entail them to do?
It allows them to like have music, if they wanna have a 1-day alcohol permit,
Did we get the verbiage of that?
yeah, I can send you a copy of the
Was
application.
presented to Justin and Sue, so that anything that's being drafted tonight should have that in it, so that's gonna coincide with
Yeah, and I think there might be noise, relief permits that don't coincide with a special event.
I think he was just using that as a model of something that had a permit charge. But yeah, I mean, clearly you've got like the special event that they run at Bidwell versus other ongoing things, or somebody having a party.
We don't do too many special events permits, I think.
Do they have that, what did they do for like when we have,
Not lately, but you used to with work over.
yeah, like the beach thing, Lake Fest, yeah.
They have not applied for one. But nobody's complaining.
Yeah, well, yeah, the town party, it's not like a private party.
Okay.
Alright, so I will make those changes and come back when we're ready. The private ways letter, so Susan drafted a letter, thank you, Susan.
You're welcome. Do you wanna look at it and come back next week? You wanna talk about it now?
I'm fine
okay
with
with
it.
either choice.
I like it. I think it's strong, powerful, but right to the point. What else can we say?
I don't know.
Draft it, sign it.
I would move to approve the letter regarding private ways, and is this going to everyone who lives on a private way?
I think that would be my goal.
Okay.
Like, getting that list is a little bit trickier.
Is it? Well, I don't know how difficult
I
it
think
is.
the assessors.
Wasn't that weren't we gonna just put that in the Monterey News for a few different broadcasts?
I personally think we should send it to every single person that has a house on a private way. I mean, sure, we can put it in the Monterey News, but
That mail,
Let me find out how many there are.
There's gotta be hundreds.
Yeah.
For sure.
Maybe you're sending it regular mail. You can always look in to see how much,
Definitely hundreds.
maybe like a bulk mail.
in a way, it's not just a private road that has 4 or 5 homes on it. It's everybody's driveway. It's your driveway and my driveway. If it dumps out onto Route 23 or any of the other maintained roads that Monterey maintains, we all have that same responsibility to make certain that whatever we're doing doesn't get in the way. So maybe it should just be a bulk mailing to everybody in town.
If that's the case, then I would suggest you sign the letter, but include it with the next tax bill, because then there's no cost.
I mean, I think this was worded specifically directed at people with a private road,
Mhm.
not just a driveway. That was my intent when I wrote it.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah.
your point is well taken. Right.
Subject to whom you like.
No, I see your point.
Well, we can start with the Monterey News and then look into how many homes there are and what the cost would be,
Okay.
right?
So, and with the Monterey News, we'd be asking the news to post this letter from the select board to the residents of Monterey?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Come from the select board corner, oh boy.
The select board corner as a whole, oh my god.
Yeah,
With 3 people.
we want you to shape up.
Alright, I would move to post this letter in the Monterey News and research how many residents it would be sent to if it was sent to all residents on private ways.
I'll second,
Any other discussion? We'll call a vote,
yes.
and yes, so that's unanimous. Yeah, I have the 3. You can have that
You
one.
can have mine.
Well, you can
Here,
do it.
sign this one. Give me that one.
I was practicing.
I will send an e-copy to Steve.
Okay, so new business. The first item is the town administrator review process. So there is a request to meet individually with each select board member, which Sophia is recommending. I think our last vote was to have the HR director meet with the town administrator. But this is another legal way to do it. I would move to amend the process of the town administrator evaluation so that each individual member of the board will conduct a personal review with the town administrator rather than it just being the HR director.
I will second,
Is there any other discussion on that?
I think it's a good idea.
Scott?
No, it's fine.
Okay, vote. Call vote.
Yes,
And yes, that's unanimous, yes vote. Okay, town administrator items.
I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware, we're gonna put the Ford tractor there, we got the news about that it shouldn't be driven on municipal bid.
oh, right,
Yes, we're aware.
They shouldn't be driven on municipal, right, yes.
And so when we get the
Sell it
final
for parts.
price, we'll
yeah, yeah.
approve it.
I remember that part, I just was making sure I understood your wording. Yeah.
And then the transfer station contract renewal with Casella.
Yes, so our 1 year will end on June 30th, and we have the option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods. And after meeting with the transfer station committee, it's been made aware that the prices may increase. So I didn't know if you guys wanted to send a letter now saying that, we intend to extend this contract another year, make sure they're gonna do it, 'cause if they don't, I think our budget's gonna need to be adjusted quite heavily. If they have the option to not renew the contract.
They have the option to not renew the contract. Oh, wait.
And they could come back to us with completely different
And
prices.
if they do renew the contract, are they allowed to bump the price?
I think we would probably have to go back out to bid.
No, if they choose to renew the contract.
Oh, no, we have a
It's a
year
set
1, year
price,
2, and year 3.
Oh, right.
So we'll
it
send
is
them a letter
built in,
saying we
right.
wanna extend for year 2 at the, enclosed pricing.
I think it's worth doing, cause it will, like,
Yeah, and who knows, they might get back and say we're not gonna renew it.
exactly,
And then we
better
have
to
to
know
look
now,
for a
right,
new-
yeah.
We can reach out and say that.
Okay, so I will.
Do we need to
I'll get a
vote, or are we good to just say?
Yeah, I mean, we could vote on signing a letter to that effect.
I will vote yes.
Well-
I will move to suggest that the select board, approve a letter to reach out to Casella to inform them that we wish to renew our contract with them, to ensure that we are able to proceed with that contract, otherwise we'll have to go out to bid.
Second, is there any other discussion? We'll call a vote,
Yes,
yes, and that's unanimous approval. We are on to correspondence minutes and public comment, we don't have minutes for this week.
what about state of emergency?
Oh, state emergency,
Yeah.
sorry.
And I'm just recommending that in case the governor does declare one and, releases any funds, if you wanna, declare a state of emergency for the storm that began on March 14th until it's over.
And, I think it's a good idea, I don't have a lot of experience with this, but there's a lot of trees still down. There are still roads closed, there was 2.5 feet of snow, I mean, that's a lot for the recent years, if that's not a reasonable, and we had to, advise people against traveling, I think that if that's not a state of emergency, I'm not sure what is, so. There
So
doesn't seem to be a
the
downside.
motion is, I'll make a motion to declare that as of March 14th, 2023, a state of emergency exists in the town of Monterey regarding snow storms, trees down and power outages. This declaration of emergency shall remain in effect until further notice is given pursuant to our judgment, or that the conditions leading to this declaration no longer exist.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion on that? This is under unanticipated business. We'll call a vote,
Yes?
and yes, that's unanimous approval of the state of emergency declaration. There's a letter thanking the highway department.
I love this, because man, that was one heck of a storm, those men did not have a lot of sleep for a couple of days.
No.
2 nights in a row.
Not sure if it's worth giving them to the police department as well, for, checking on a lot of the elderly, Brian, did a couple.
I love this idea.
Yeah,
We're lucky to have good people, we really are.
okay, is there any other unanticipated business?
I just want to let you guys know, you probably assumed it, but best to tell you that the Southern Berkshire Volunteer Ambulance, or the Southern Berkshire Ambulance did not hold a meeting last night, due to the weather. It's been postponed, and I don't think they set a new date, at least I haven't been informed of what that would be yet. So, I'm still planning to go when they're actually planning to have it.
There's no indication that they're gonna decrease our assessment.
This isn't even about that, this is
Yeah.
about going forward.
Yeah.
Rather than this year, so, but I still think it's worth having a conversation, I mean, look, Yeah, we've been down this road, you already know what I think.
And that we have that on our budget coming out of free cash. Okay, any other business? There's no public? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Sure. Motion to adjourn.
Second, vote on the motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, meeting adjourned at 7:17 PM.
Thank you, gentlemen.